Title: VAT confused me until I made this one shift. They say most businesses start at the kitchen table, but mine started at the corner of my living room wedged between a bookshelf and a dying houseplant. I was in Leeds, fresh out of a boring marketing job and hungry for something that felt mine. So I launched a small online shop selling handmade home decor, upcycled wall art, hand-poured candles, coasters shaped like Yorkshire pudding squirky things that made people smile. Orders trickled in at first, then they came faster. I celebrated every ding of my phone like a birthday party. Sales were steady, the reviews were kind, and I felt like I was finally doing what I was meant to do. I had spreadsheets, packaging tape, and a growing collection of postal receipts that made me feel very official. Tax? Well, tax was a line at the bottom of my accounting software, something I'd deal with at the end of the year. I paid a small fee to a freelance accountant once a year, filed my self-assessment, and moved on. Clean, simple, done. Then came a word I started hearing more often: VAT. First, it popped up in a customer email. Can you send a VAT invoice? I squinted at the screen and thought, huh? What for? Then a supplier asked for my VAT number when I tried to place a bulk order. I responded with a polite, I'm not VAT registered, like I knew exactly what I was talking about. But I didn't. Truth is, I had no idea what VAT really meant when it was supposed to matter. I just assumed it was something for big companies with boardrooms and budgets. Not me. I was just a solo creator gluing twine to things in my socks. Still, the mentions became more frequent. One friend, also a small business owner, casually said over coffee, "You've got to keep an eye on your turnover. You don't want to get slapped with backdated VAT." I nodded like I understood, then went home and Googled turnover versus profit like a first-year economics student. That night, I checked my sales reports. I'd just crossed 60 bounds, 0 for the rolling year. And I remembered something from the VAT threshold guide I had skimmed. The registration point was 90-0. Panic tickled the back of my neck. Still, I thought, I've got time. I'll figure it out when I get closer. Spoiler, I didn't. I was riding high. Orders were flooding in weeks where I barely had time to sleep, let alone think about tax. Then the first alarm bell rang, an email from a regular customer. Subject: VAT invoice request. Hi there, I love my new candle set. Could you send me a VAT invoice for my records? Thanks, Laura. My heart thudded. VAT invoice? I stared at the screen. I'd never issued one. Did this mean I'd been doing it wrong all along? I fumbled through my invoice template, which looked very official: company name, my name, an invoice number, but no VAT number or separate tax line. I replied, I'm not VAT registered yet. Happy to help with anything else, and clicked send, hoping I sounded confident. Then another message pinged, this time from a boutique store I supplied with coasters. Subject: question on pricing. Hey, just noticed your coaster prices are listed as 12 each. Why don't your invoices include VAT? All our other suppliers charge VAT. My fingers froze. I mumbled, all our other suppliers. That was the phrase I shouldn't have used. Before I could craft a response, another bomb dropped an email from a wood supplier I'd started using for bulk orders. Hello Doe Co. Please provide your VAT registration number to process this invoice. Thanks, procurement team. I closed my laptop and paced the room. VAT registration number? My mind raced through every late night, I'll deal with that later moment. I called my accountant the next morning and booked a meeting. My stomach knotted as I sat across from him in a tiny cafe. He flipped through his notes, eyes serious. You're close to the £90 zero threshold, he said, tapping the paper. That's the VAT registration point for taxable turnover. Once you hit that, you must register within 30 days. I felt my face go pale. But what if I don't want to? His eyebrow lifted. You don't have a choice. If you exceed the threshold and fail to register, HMRC can charge penalties and backdate VAT you should have collected. The words echoed in my head. Backdate, penalties, collect VAT. I never charged. I stammered, but I'm just one person. My margins are tight. VAT feels like another expense, another headache. He leaned forward. VAT is not an expense. It's a pass-through. You collect it from customers and pass it to HMRC. The real benefit is reclaiming VAT on your business purchases like packaging, materials, and even your workshop rent. If you ignore it, you're leaving money on the table. I stared at my coffee. My accountant's calm certainty clashed with the panic rising in my chest. So, I register, charge 20% extra on my prices, and then reclaim on expenses? He nodded. Exactly. You'll need to update your invoices, your website, and your bookkeeping. But once you shift your mindset, it becomes part of your normal process. Walking back to my flat, every step felt heavy. I mentally replayed the supplier emails, the customer questions, the spreadsheet lines showing sales climbing past 60-0. I thought I had time, but time had caught me off guard. That evening, I sat at my desk, drafted a list. Register for VAT online. Update my website prices to include VAT. Adjust my invoice template. Set aside a VAT account for collected tax. Track expenses for reclaiming input VAT. My hands shook as I typed. It wasn't just a technicality, it was a commitment to grow, to professionalize, and to trust that I could handle it. VAT had loomed as a threat. Now, it was becoming a step forward. That evening, I opened my laptop and typed, "What is a VAT return?" before realizing I had no idea where to start. Within minutes, I was drowning in a sea of jargon. Input tax, output tax, net VAT, partial exemption. Every result led to another unfamiliar term. My head spun. I clicked through HMRC's official pages, watched a few YouTube explainers, and skimmed blog posts from accounting firms. Each tutorial promised clarity, but all I felt was confusion. The more I learned, the less confident I became. My mouse hovered over the Find an Accountant button. I envisioned a calm expert taking all this off my plate. Then I saw the fees. £500, £0, just to get set up, plus monthly bookkeeping costs. My heart sank. I couldn't afford that yet, especially not now. For a moment, I even entertained a desperate thought. What if I just scaled back? Slowed my sales so I'd stay under the 90-0 threshold. I imagined closing a product line, turning down orders, keeping my turnover low and my head above the water. If I never hit the threshold, I could ignore VAT entirely. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. My living room felt smaller, the walls closing in. All this because of a 3-letter acronym. That's when the truth slapped me. I was letting fear of tax dictate my business decisions. I had built momentum, attracted customers, and created something people loved. Yet I was ready to sabotage it all just to avoid paperwork. I took a deep breath. Fear had become my boss. And if I let it win, I'd never grow beyond this point. So I stood up, went to my desk, and wrote a new note on a post-it. VAT isn't a trap, it's a milestone. Turning that mindset around felt like unlocking a door. VAT registration wasn't the end. It was a sign I'd made it to the next level. It meant I was successful enough to contribute, reclaim, and professionalize. I reopened my computer, replaced my dread with determination, and typed into the HMRC portal, "Register for VAT." The fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer felt as big as my vision for the future. It happened late one night, somewhere between frustration and surrender. I was half asleep, endlessly scrolling, when I stumbled on a link titled, "VAT Made Simple." Really? Skeptical, I clicked. It was a surprisingly plain English guide straight from HMRC, no jargon, no fluff. Just clear steps. What VAT is, when to register, how to charge it, and how to reclaim it. It even included diagrams. Then I found a free YouTube tutorial with a guy explaining VAT with coffee mugs and toy dinosaurs. It clicked. That night, something shifted. I realized VAT wasn't out to get me. It wasn't a monster, it was a system. A boring, paperwork-filled system, yes, but one I could actually work with. I registered the next day. Once I received my VAT number, I began adjusting my pricing. I updated my website to reflect prices, including VAT, added the VAT registration number to my invoices, and used a free invoicing tool to generate proper VAT-compliant receipts. Next, I opened a dedicated VAT savings account. Every time a sale came in, I set aside 20% immediately. Out of sight, out of panic. No more scrambling at the end of the quarter. Then came the fun part, I started reclaiming. I hadn't realized just how many things I could claim back VAT on: packaging materials, my design software subscription, even the ergonomic office chair I'd bought during lockdown. The total savings shocked me. I wasn't just collecting tax for the government anymore, I was running a smarter business. The fear slowly faded. It wasn't fun, exactly, but it was manageable. Every step gave me more confidence. Every invoice I sent, every pound I saved, it felt like I was stepping out of the fog. VAT was no longer this ominous cloud hanging over me. It was just part of doing business. And that realization? That was the real shift. Within a month, I was fully VAT registered. I had updated my pricing, created proper VAT invoices, and shockingly started explaining VAT to my confused business friends. The real win wasn't just in the numbers, it was the mindset shift. I stopped seeing VAT as a punishment for growing. I started viewing it as a signpost I was leveling up. I wasn't too small anymore. I was a real accountable business owner. When someone asked, "Was it hard?" I said honestly, yes, at first. But the hardest part was the fear of not knowing. Now, I make more. I keep more. And tax doesn't scare me anymore. That one shift choosing to learn instead of hide changed everything. Moral lesson: tax isn't the enemy. Ignorance is. VAT sounds intimidating, but it's manageable when you break it down. Understand the basics. Register when your taxable turnover crosses the UK threshold, £90, zero. Charge VAT clearly on eligible products, services. Reclaim VAT on your valid business expenses. Most importantly, don't wait until you're drowning. Avoiding it won't stop the clock, but learning the rules can save you stress and money. The truth? The system isn't always friendly, but it is navigable. Once you understand the flow, VAT stops being a threat and starts being a tool for better business. Clarity breeds confidence. Subscribe for more. Love real business lessons told through relatable stories? Subscribe now for more smart storytelling that helps you grow and glow. Follow for more. Want to stop fearing tax, sales, and scaling? Follow for weekly tips made human, simple, and surprisingly fun.